Many people have written to me asking me why I haven't made a video about the terrorist attacks in Paris last Friday. I have no idea why anyone is clamoring for my opinion on the matter, as I'm
Neither
not
do I.
a Parisian.
Yeah. I have no idea what they're writing to you either. Is what is to come in this video what they expected? Because if you watched this entire video and you found yourself agreeing with the amazing atheist, what in the fuck is going on in your mind?
Nor am I an expert on terrorism.
Okay.
What are you an expert on?
God damn it, what a moot point. You don't have to have any other qualification to speak on the topic of terrorism than being a thinking agent. If you can process rational thought even at a minimal level, you should know that terrorism is not a good thing. But we'll keep this simple. Terrorism, bad. Fire, hot. Okay? Death and destruction in the name of a pedophilic barbarian, who in turn did this for a non-existent god, not good.
Drew's on fire.
I can tell you, though, that my reasons for not making a video on the subject, well, my reason is just that I've been exhausted and wanted to spend my weekend hanging out with my girlfriend and playing a few hours of Fallout 4.
Oh.
I assume sitting on your ass all day and not having a day job can be exhausting, but I would not know.
Ooh.
But I do have some things I'd like to say about the attack and its aftermath. I hope you will forgive the lack of production in this video. I feel like getting these thoughts out quickly is important, given the audience demand for this. And I wouldn't have had time to get this video out today if it were more production intensive. And I think it's the words I have to say that really matter anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some very profound shit coming our way.
Regarding the series of coordinated attacks by Islamic terrorists in Paris that claimed the lives of upwards of 120 people, I can only express absolute disgust and anger.
Thanks.
Some arguments have cropped up on my Twitter feed and elsewhere in my social media since these attacks, and I'd like to clarify my position on the questions underpinning these various debates. First, there is the argument over whether or not doctrinal problems of Islamic theology are part of why groups like ISIS thrive.
Are you fucking kidding me?
And why they operate with the brutality that they do.
How is that even a question? How is it that people out there are still asking this shit?
Get him, Drew.
Are Islamic doctrines behind the actions of the terrorist organization known as the fucking Islamic State?
Exactly.
Of course! Of course! My God, there are softball questions, and then there's this.
Limp.
It's like when the Democrats were asked on stage during the first debate, do Black Lives Matter or do all lives matter?
They failed.
That isn't a fucking softball question. Don't call that a softball question. The ball was just placed on a fucking tee stand for you to send into the upper decks. Oh, and by the way, all the Democrats fumbled and embarrassed themselves over answering that because they're fucking pathetic when it comes to having a pair of balls, which is what I think we're about to see here. But let's see what whopper of a response the amazing atheist gives us to that doozy of a question.
Don't fuck with Texas.
Are Islamic doctrines behind the actions of ISIS?
Yeah, baby.
Now, ISIS has claimed responsibility for these attacks, and their letter claiming credit mentions Allah 14 times, and it's not a long letter either.
Imagine that. God damn it. Go fucking figure that the Islamic State, who explicitly states at every fucking chance that they get that they do what they do because it's the will of Allah.
Yes.
Imagine that they are still repeating boldly and proudly their admiration of their God and their doctrine.
It's only a 518-word document. That's about the length of 2 pages of a common paperback book. Now I'm going to read you some excerpts from ISIS's letter. In a blessed attack for which Allah facilitated the causes for success, a faithful group of soldiers of the Caliphate, may Allah dignify it and make it victorious, launched out. It targeted the capital of prostitution and obscenity, the carrier of the banner of the cross in Europe, Paris.
Well, obviously they're lying, TJ. It's because Americans killed the natives, and we had black slaves and neocolonialism, Iraq. But really, it sounds pretty fucking straightforward, doesn't it? Like all the other messages this group sends out.
Here's another excerpt. Allah had granted our brothers their wish and gave them what they loved, for they detonated their belts in the gatherings of the disbelievers after running out of ammunition. We ask Allah to accept them among the martyrs and make us follow them.
Alright, I've only seen a few pieces of this video so far, and they were at the end. And god damn it, if he argues in any way after reading that doctrine is not the cause of this.
Now, nothing about this letter lists secular grievances with France. France is simply declared evil, and it is said that Allah wills that its people be destroyed by the righteous and just soldiers of Islam.
They're real tricky.
And it's interesting because those messages he just read described an entirely religious outlook on Paris. It mentioned sin and non-belief as the cause of the attack. Prostitution and obscenity, to be specific. No Western intervention was mentioned.
None.
America is allied with the French bastards, and all of them will pay for what they've done to our land. None of that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Are we done here?
Mm-hmm.
How are people hearing this and still denying the connection between doctrine and action?
They're dumb as fuck.
And I'm assuming, since the Amazing Atheist is reading this, that this has been posted publicly. I haven't read this before. I didn't have to. I've heard all the other ISIS messages that they
Bingo.
sent out.
It's obvious.
To deny that Islam is part of Islamic extremism or jihadism or whatever you want to call it is preposterous and dishonest.
I almost thought he was going to fuck that up for a second, but I am still, however, not going to pat him on the back. Because anyone not able to see that goddamn connection between doctrine and action after hearing those messages is beyond respecting.
Mm-hmm.
They fell miserably at reading comprehension. You know, it's my understanding that Steve Shives is an English major. And Steve would read those passages and remind us that there is no such thing as a self-interpreting text. And those messages could very well be taken that American foreign policy created Islamic extremism.
Oh, fuck Shives. And his
I
wife.
wanted to throw that out there. Just a quick fuck you to Steve Shives before I continue.
Bingo. Fuck you,
It
Steve.
would be akin to denying that the Crusades had anything to do with Christianity. Now, the common refrain from some of the left is that groups like ISIS have perverted or twisted the religion of Islam. How does one pervert a religion exactly? There are many different interpretations of Christianity and of Islam and probably of every other major world religion.
You should know.
So
you're a pervert.
what is the criteria for perversion of a religion?
Sticking a banana up
When
the
the
religion.
tenets of a particular interpretation are not palatable to you personally? It seems to me that ISIS is not perverting their religion. There are 532 instances of cruelty in the Quran put together by skepticsannotatedquran.com and linked to in the description below. Most of these verses deal with the fate of unbelievers and how they will suffer a terrible doom. TheReligionOfPeace.com has also compiled a list of 109 verses, all commanding Muslims to use violence against disbelievers.
Yeah, Islam bad. Islam dog shit.
That is also linked to down below. But even if we are to somehow come to the conclusion that ISIS is perverting Islam, that still doesn't really let Islam off the hook, does it? It's still being used by murderers to justify their acts of evil. And this is a big part of what religion does in general.
religion.
It gives people an excuse to justify their evil.
Mormons, I got
There's
you.
no sound, pragmatic reason to hate gay people, for instance.
Uh-huh.
But if you cite the Bible,
Oh, the Bible!
as your reason for hating
Christians
gay
are-
people, then many will view your beliefs as sacrosanct and deserving of protection and respect.
Talk about Christians.
Anything is right if God says it's right.
Gotcha.
Yep, all of that is true. And how does the song go? The Bible is bullshit, the Quran is a lie, the Bhagavad Gita did not fall from the sky. The difference is that modern day Christians aren't murdering gay people. There's a lot of anti-gay sentiment still around, even here in America, but take the most batshit of the Christian groups here. Take the Westboro Baptist Church.
40 people.
Even they, as insipid and pathetic as they are, they have found a way to justify not beating gay people to death with rocks.
They make signs.
Even though Leviticus instructs to do that. If we were seeing that sort of thing on a scale even a quarter, an eighth as large as we're seeing it in Islam,
A millionth.
I would be in agreement with you that, Christianity is as lethal in the way Islam is today. But it's not.
Oh, it ain't.
Even murdering 120 people in cold blood. So Islam is part of the problem, and it cannot be let off the hook.
Did he say part?
Now on to another issue. There are 65,000 refugees of countries like Syria that are seeking asylum in the U.S.
Don't care.
But many are afraid to let these people in because we don't want what happened in Paris to happen here.
A very legitimate concern.
Brilliant.
Thousands of people coming from the birthplace of ISIS, the homeland of the most destructive and oppressive terrorist organization
of all time
in the fucking world at the moment. Why would people in the West have their concerns about letting in tens of thousands of total strangers with ties to a backwards-ass homeland, which is the breeding ground for Islamic extremism?
Try millions.
Why would they maybe have a problem with letting everyone in, no questions asked? Because we're not all in fucking sane, TJ.
Yeah, TJ, you bitch.
I actually read a tweet today in the midst of all the shit that's been going on, and I thought it was pretty spot on, and I'll do my own rendition of it.
Hit us.
It goes, you don't necessarily lock your doors because you hate everyone outside. You lock your doors because you love everyone inside.
Just blew my mind.
And as a basic means of safety, why would you want to import a potential problem into your own backyard?
Suicide.
Now, some of the refugees might be ISIS in disguise, so we need to deny them entry to protect ourselves. I must be honest with you, I find this position to be the height of cowardice. 65,000 people need our help because they have been victims of ISIS and of Assad, and we're honestly considering turning them down because some of them might be bad guys.
What a fucking imbecile. Let me jump in here. TJ, what are you talking about cowardice? You're a fat man from Ohio talking about the global situation of Islam? Why don't you go to an Islamic country like Germany or anywhere in the Middle East and start talking about cowardice? And by the way, ISIS in disguise, one of the guys that just shot up Paris was a refugee who was ISIS in disguise. Oh my God. He's acting like ISIS is not a real thing. As he's just willfully blind to all of the terrorist events that have happened. And there have been countless examples of them. Cowardice. Come to Vegas, I'll fight your fat ass, you coward.
Cowardice? How in the fuck is it cowardice to want to protect your society, your family, your possessions? The world has seen what people adhering to a backwards-ass ideology can do to a civilization.
See it all the time.
Hell, ask the fucking refugees, the legitimate
Ooh,
ones.
la la la.
And another thing, you bought this line that all these people are refugees. You have
It's
no
the way
idea
that
who
we
these
rock
people
what
are.
we're doing out there.
And before this refugee situation, it's kind of funny. I was already making videos bashing Islam. And I've several times in these videos posted the Pew Poll statistics on beliefs held by these different regions and how the term moderate Muslim doesn't really apply in a lot of areas, like wanting Sharia, death for adultery, even death for apostasy, things like that. And the answer I most commonly got from people was that most of those people who are polled that think this way aren't a threat to our societies because they are isolated far away from us in places that they could never get to us. And now we're talking about importing tens of thousands of those people directly into Western countries. And why Western countries? Because several of the neighboring nations to Syria refuse to take them. Ask Saudi Arabia why it isn't taking refugees. Then ask Kuwait and Qatar. Ask the United Arab Emirates why they're not taking any refugees.
Well, when you turn down people who need help to
You need
protect
help.
your own skin from some minimal, unproven threat, you are the
Fuck
fucking
you.
bad guy.
Minimal? No. And unproven? Not a fucking chance that you're right on that. And at least one of the recent attackers in Paris was carrying a Syrian passport. From my understanding, the investigators suspect that he posed as a refugee to cross into France. And let's say, even if that turned out to be complete bullshit, even if so far none of the refugees hold any backwards religious ideologies, which of course any sane person knows is horseshit, it's not even possible that that's the case. And let's say they hadn't committed any crimes at all. The system set in place to take refugees isn't taking nearly enough precautions for those who get accepted. But because we exercise caution, and because your heart is bleeding all over the place, we're the bad guys?
Pocahontas is raping you.
Dude, fuck that.
Bingo.
What backwards, politically correct, drivel fucking nonsense is this?
Welcome to my hell.
First of all,